I would, but it's on a microphone, and that's kind of really loud in the microphone. And Finding Paradise, which is the one that comes after this, takes place across the whole thing, but it's mostly. Is it going to show on the map? Yeah, it will. It looks like it probably took place around here in his lifetime. But Finding Paradise starts here and goes to here kind of in parts. I'll be uploading it to YouTube, Raj. You can see. The first video is already up for Finding Paradise. But yeah, the thing that I really like about this, so I'll talk about it now. Perfect, because it'll be its own separate video. So there are definitely things that could be improved. There's a lot of the but thou must, as I said, where you have to follow exactly along the line, and you can't, like, deviate off the path or explore anything too much, as this game isn't really designed to be that kind of game, but it is a thing that I could see people criticizing about it. There's also kind of the fact that the way this is told limits how well some of the ideas can be expressed, with having no dialogue. There's no real way to express kind of his emotions and his feelings as to why he's doing things. I mean, you can kind of understand how, in the eyes of a child, well, this is what a child would do, kind of thing. A kid wouldn't want to leave the bird at the vet in case the vet let it go and he, lost his only friend. Him being a lonely kid, he wouldn't want to feel lonely. I can understand those kind of things. I don't know that everything works as well this way. I feel like the teacher situations work better with the dialogue, but as it is, I think that the effort they went through with this game of having no dialogue, yes, exactly, Raj, of having no dialogue is a very powerful way of writing it, because by doing it this way, you don't really need different languages. You don't need to have a story that's limited to the markets you can get it translated for. You could have a story like this, and someone in some little town somewhere in like Kyrgyzstan or something like that happens upon the game, even if they don't speak English or French or Russian or, a more common language, although they probably would. I believe Kyrgyz speak Russian pretty commonly. But that was just my example. Anyone can come across this game, and anyone can relate to the story that's going on, because there's no language to have to get by that language barrier on. I definitely would say the biggest sticking point that people would have with this game is the very handholdy, you have to go certain directions kind of concepts with it, which is fair. There are plenty of things I have to say positive about the game, as always with the Freebird games, especially the more polished ones such as these. As always, the music is fantastic. The music works well with what is going on in the game. The music matches the tone of what's happening. It gets a little bit faster paced when it needs to. It backs off a little bit when it needs to. The sound effects and things all sound right. Even though there's only 1 to 2 different chirping sounds, they're not used enough that it sounds redundant. The graphics, I've always loved pixel graphics, and I feel like the ones that are in this all work well together. And as I've said with the artistic direction of the game, I really like the segues where they're in the forest but also in his bedroom, or in the forest but also I guess it's in his living room, where they go to the area and it has the backdrop of one and the tile set of another, or when they transition from the school to the playground and there's no doors, it just goes to where the lockers start to have branches and stuff on top of the tree kind of effect. I really like those kind of sections. It's an artistic stylization. I always have liked the kind of more surreal kind of concepts. I really like the concept of, hybridized atmosphere. That's probably just talking a bunch of words. But I know what I mean. I like those kinds of effects. But even when it goes to the more standard things where they're in a location or whatever, things feel like they're supposed to. The little store looks like a little store. The veterinary hospital looks like a veterinary hospital. In a small town, obviously, in a real scenario, you probably wouldn't have a kid getting the bandages and things like that for the doctor. The stylization of the apartment looks nice. The other big problem I could see with some people having, and it's one of those you gotta kind of take it as what it is. It was a similar thing I had when I was doing Finding Paradise, specifically when I was doing the recap of Finding Paradise for those parts where I did the alternate dialogue. You move kind of slow, but it's not necessarily a game where moving fast is necessary. It's a stop and smell the roses kind of really take in what's going on kind of gameplay. And so it doesn't have to be fast. But I could see some people saying, it could be just a little bit quicker, like maybe just a couple more pixels per second, or I don't even know how you measure those speed in a video game. Yeah, it's definitely not Call of Duty. It's pretty much on the exact opposite end of the spectrum from Call of Duty. But I could see some people being a little irritated that it's just a bit too slow. It bothered me more on the ones where there's dialogue, because a big part of the storytelling in those is the dialogue, and so when you're wandering around and you move slow, the story drags a little bit sometimes. I guess that's another fair criticism I could have mentioned about the other games that I didn't before, is that because there's a part in it where you're running, and the running matches the tone, but I feel like if they increase the running speed a little bit and the walking speed significantly, it could get the same thing across, and you'd be able to drag out, or you'd be able to express the dialogue a little more comfortably. But that said, the motion is not distractingly slow. The only reason that I even noticed it so much in my replay of Finding Paradise at the very beginning to demonstrate some of the stuff that I missed was because I was specifically not trying to experience the full thing. I was just trying to catch up to the parts where I was trying to do the other dialogue, and so that's the only reason it really was even that noticeable. But in this, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I don't know where that was going exactly. The story, it's really, really quaint, and I really like the idea that it's expressed without words, but it still gets its dialogue and its ideas across. I think that's really awesome. It ties well into its sequel. It gives those little points of knowledge for people who have played it, but it's not so overbearingly important to the plot that it requires you to play it first, which is good in kind of disparately connected sequels like this. Throughout the whole series, I can say this now that this is the last of the series so far that I've done. Of the 5 games, this is the 5th game for me to play on the channel. You don't have to play any of the others to understand what's going on to some extent in the separate pieces. The 2 holiday specials from Christmas 1 and Christmas 2, which there might be a Christmas 3 now. I don't know for sure. There was a big gap between the others. those two probably require a little bit more about it, but overall, they all can stand alone and you can still get the story without feeling like you have to do your homework first on it, which is nice. What I think about the characters in this game, I like it a little bit more knowing the things that I'll know from the second game, or, well, the third game. It's hard to say. This is technically the second game, but it's also the third game out of 5. And the third game is technically the second full game, but also the 5th game out of 5. It's weird. But with that out of the way, I like the characters. I really like the kid, especially getting into the things that you learn in Finding Paradise. Yeah, exactly. It is weird. It's and the third one, it's even more complicated in that it is the third game in the mainline story. It is the second full game in the series, and it is the 5th game out of all 5 that are related. It's hard to explain. So I guess it's better to explain them by the names of To the Moon, A Bird Story, Finding Paradise. But it just, in my head, it's the second game, the third game, as it were. But yeah, I feel like knowing the things I know from Finding Paradise about the characters in this game, well, the character in this game, the primary character, the only human character with a face, I feel like knowing those things really does add to what you learn from this. Character production? I guess I don't know what you mean there. The things you learn in that second experience with Colin, which his name is Colin. The feelings and the experience that you get from that does inform his personality in this, and it is very likable. If you go back and definitely watch the Finding Paradise playthrough before you start on the beginning part of this one, because I do kind of accidentally spoil some stuff about Finding Paradise in this. His personality, though, is definitely informed by that. And I think both of them work in that way. If you start with this one and you go to Finding Paradise, you can see the little bits of his personality that are in this, in that. And if you start with Finding Paradise and then do A Bird Story, you can definitely see his motivations a little clearer with this. And then as far as the bird is really charming. They have graphics and kind of quirks in the way it acts that you can understand what's trying to be expressed by the bird, and I think that works pretty well, and the kind of fantastical things that go along with it are nice. So I do enjoy the two significant main characters of the game. The other two characters who have some level of plot that are the villains in a sense. The teacher is extremely flat. She's flat enough she doesn't have a face, so I guess in that way it's fair that it's even being emphasized in the game that it's not directly a significant character. But she is particularly mean. I've had mean teachers like that, I guess, but without knowing the context of what's driving the situation, it's a little vaguer. There are two things that you kind of glean from this. One is that he's fallen asleep in class before, and the other is that he's been daydreaming enough that he's not paying attention to the lecture. But I don't know if it's the difference in cultural experiences that the story is being told from a person who lives in a culture where maybe the teachers are a little bit more stern. She comes across as really mean compared to how most teachers are that I've experienced in the United States. There are teachers like that, but they're a little bit fewer and far between. It wouldn't be one where like that would be the only teacher that you knew. You'd probably have a teacher you really liked as well. The other one being the vet. The vet is probably the least developed character that has some story to them. The vet's only real drive is to, try and take care of the bird. And doing her job. The classmates, there are only really two classmates that ever really interact with your character in this story. There's the kid who sits next to him that blames the picking on the teacher that gets him in trouble at one point on him. And then there's the one who plays on the seesaw with him. Other than that, all the characters are actually non-interactable. If that's not a word, it is now. There are only 4 significant characters. But yeah, the vet's drive, is to do her job, to, take care of the bird and set it free so they can go back to doing what it does. And is the villain, insofar as doing what she does is partly taking away Colin's friend. But on the other end of things, it also, that character being there is the important character building moment for the character in learning this is selfish and I need to let go. Which I think is a very good way of demonstrating it. I think it's a good way of having that movement without having a character who has to play into the story so much that you have to build an entire side story off of it. It's interesting to have exactly one human character with a face and personality, no dialogue, and still be able to make a story that is as moving as this. I do definitely give kudos to that. A lot of writers could try to do this exact same thing with no success. Gao is really a very good writer, and I'm always looking forward to something more. I definitely can't wait until the next one. I don't know anything about it yet. I'm hoping to hear news soon, but obviously after making a game there's probably some time where a break is in order. It would be cool to see, yes. It would be cool to see a new holiday special to go with the new game, but it may be one of those things. If I remember correctly, the second holiday special didn't show up until after February, even though it was Christmas related, if I recall. I'm not so certain on that off the top of my head, but I believe that's about right. The kind of happenings from here, though, definitely can expand. There are some really cool possibilities that go from this. It does leave it to where they could close the story and explain why there are no more games, which is interesting, but there's definitely room for more, and I would love to see more. This is the only series to have me cry on camera. It is also the only series to have me cry twice on camera. It has moving enough moments that there is more than one occasion where it, affects me like this. Undertale is obviously a standalone game that only will be here for that. But, and there could be a sequel to Undertale. I think a lot of fans don't want a sequel because they feel like it would cheapen the message of Undertale in a way. But there could be a sequel to that, and it could move me to that, but I don't see a sequel to Undertale happening. So this would be, as far as I know, the only series that has, really hit me hard and will have a sequel, and that sequel also hit me hard. This one didn't hit me as hard, which is in part because it's not trying to, really get at your heart in the same way. It's more about the idea of growing up But I do have to say, I really did like this game. I liked this series. I like this developer. I'm going to try and do the other two. I can't remember which two I haven't done. I think it's Quintessence is the name of one. Let's see here. Yeah, Quintessence, The Blighted Venom, and then there's one more. I'd have to look through and see what it is. But they are the only other two that he has created to this point. And then there's the mainline stories. But that said, this has been a Bird story. I really hope I emphasized early enough to watch the playthrough of Finding Paradise first, because I do kind of spoil a couple of things that are kind of significant plot points. It just came as natural stream of consciousness during this. So there is that, but I will be uploading these at the same time, simply because otherwise I'll lose the videos later on in my list, because there's definitely no way that these will be close to the top 38 days out, which is probably what I'm looking at by the time this series would be done. So I will be uploading these in parallel, and I'll just probably put a note in the first video to watch Finding Paradise first because of my conversations in it. But that said, I am probably headed out for at least a little while. I don't know that I'll be back because it's getting late, and right now I'm sharing this area with someone, so it makes it a little harder to stay up late. But if I'm back, I will see you then. If not, I will be around tomorrow. Shin should be here tomorrow. And we'll do something then, for sure. But with that, I will probably be calling it for at least now. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good day, night, afternoon, morning, whatever it is where you are. I hope to see you again real soon, and take care.